Okay, it's 7 o'clock according to the official Pitkin Town Watch. Let's see, we will start off by calling roll, and everybody is present except for James and Susie. Is Susie going to be here?
Yes.
I don't know.
Okay, well, she'll show up. Okay. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes of the January meeting? Of the January meeting. We got
Minutes, I'm sorry.
We got minutes of the January meeting and the special meeting that we also called on the election. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to the minutes? James was always our proofreader.
Make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
This is the minutes for the January regular meeting. Okay, I got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I got a motion from Matt, a second from Lisa. All in favor of approving the minutes of the January regular meeting, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, and then we got to do the special meeting that we, on January 28th, we had a special meeting to talk about the election and hiring a consultant. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to those minutes? If not, I would ask for a motion to approve.
Mr. Mayor, wasn't the meeting on the 20th?
Well, I'll be reading this on the 28th. Unless
Trying to put the wrong date on it?
this says the 28th now.
No, it wasn't the,
But I'm looking at my calendar, and the 28th was a Thursday, whereas the previous Wednesday was the 20th. And I've
The
got
20th?
Pitkin in my calendar, so I would send it to you.
Okay, it was on January 20th. Okay, I've got a motion from Cindy to approve the January 20th minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Rand. All in favor of approving the minutes for the special meeting, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we'll go down. Rand. Anything under clerk's report?
No, we'll cover everything later.
Treasurer's report? Did I get that?
No, did I get it?
Unless it's on the back of something here and you didn't see it. Okay, there it is.
Call later. Missed that. He didn't have the treasurer. Secretary missed that.
Does anybody have any questions on any line item of the treasurer's report? If not, I would ask for a motion to approve the disbursements for January.
I make a motion to approve the disbursements for February, right?
No, it'll be January.
January, okay, January.
Okay, I have a motion from Matt. Do I have a second? I have a second from Cindy. All in favor of approving the treasurer's report, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we did the treasurer's report. Mayor's report, I guess I go. I decided to move the meeting upstairs. Several people suggested that there were going to be a lot of people here, and I can see that there are. So, but I didn't want to go back to the Newcomb Center because I don't think we ought to move the meetings back and forth and back and forth. So we'll just have to. I'm sure with this with the election coming up, we will have to continue to meet up here because there will be a lot of people at the next few meetings, and then summer will be here, and so that's probably what we'll do. Anything under town attorney's report?
No, other than I am speaking to the town clerk, Jody Wise, on nearly a daily basis. Ms. Wise is working very, very hard on the election, and there's a lot of questions, so nothing else.
Okay. I've got a special place on the agenda because we have some guests from GCEA. Mike? Yeah. This is Mike McBride, and it seems that our franchise agreement is going to expire this year, so he's here to talk to us.
Okay, where would you like me to?
I guess come up here to the front, or...
Do you mind if I introduce my?
Sure, you go right
agents
ahead.
here? So Roger Grog is our Chief Operations Officer, and Logan Peterson is our Marketing Person. So they came with me tonight. Thank you. Well, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. As the mayor indicated, we have a franchise agreement with the town of Pitkin. As a town, as an incorporated town, I guess, you have the right to provide your own utility services if you choose, but a lot of towns will enter into a franchise agreement with a local utility provider, which has been the case for, I guess, probably ever with GCEA. And so the last franchise agreement was entered into between the town of Pitkin and GCEA, signed June 19th of 2001. It was a 15-year agreement. And so we're looking to begin negotiations for renewal of that agreement, which would be up June 19th. The agreement does have provisions that allow us to, go beyond that date if necessary through negotiations, but we wanted to go ahead and get started on that. And there are provisions for just extending the existing agreement if we so choose. Under the agreement, GCEA pays to the town 2.41% of annual revenues from members in the town. And so that is a source of revenue for the town. The franchise agreement also provides for the town to request streetlights to be installed, and then that's just offset against that franchise revenue. So that's one way that the franchise can be utilized, and if it's not utilized that way, then it's just an annual payment. So basically, we just kind of want to start the process of negotiation for that renewal of franchise agreement, and but be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Mayor, do we have a copy of the previous agreement? I don't know that I do. I may have one, but
I don't think that I do.
I could leave you this copy right here if that's all right.
That would be outstanding. Thank you.
I don't think it has any scribble notes on it or anything, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we have to ask if you're proposing any changes, or?
There might be a little opportunity for cleanup in there. I'm not suggesting any changes. There was some language in there about the possibility of deregulation of the utility industry, and that was kind of a hot topic at the time that this franchise agreement was signed. I don't know that that language needs to continue. I don't know that it harms anything if we were to just extend it, but we'd be happy to continue to serve the town of Pitkin under the terms of the existing franchise agreement if that's acceptable to the town as well. So.
Okay, well, we can study it over, and I'll let Jim read through it. But I guess, if it's been okay for 15 years, I guess it probably will be.
Okay, I can leave you a couple of business cards too, just so you know how to get a hold of me.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay, we're ready for public comments, and I had a request from Tom. This is Tom Gibb. I think that everybody knows, and he wants to read to us.
I do.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay?
It's 2 pages, it's large print. I'll try and move right through it and be quick. My petition to be on the ballot for the Pitkin Board of Trustees ran into some issues when several objections were submitted to the town clerk. Those were forwarded to me, and I responded to the clerk, and I went to see a couple of people who had made objections. I went to see both Ramon, and I went to see Susie, and my goal was to ask them to withdraw their objections and to make an effort to show them why they were in error. And those efforts came to nothing, and the town clerk declared that my nomination was invalid. By Colorado statutes, the only appeal from a town clerk's decision is to go before a district judge. Now, I was not interested in that, and so in order to avoid any confusion, I filed an official withdrawal of nomination. Now, during this process, which was several days ongoing, and you know, it's got stuff going on both ends. During this process, apparently no one who was in opposition to my running, my being on the ballot, and that includes the trustees here, no one bothered to find out the state of Colorado's position in the specifics of this matter. And as I went around and as I listened and as I read the letters of opposition, what I found were opinions and wishful thinking, and these were verbalized also as being true and factual and lawful. And I was informed by several trustees that I could not run, among other things. So I would like to inform everybody here and to remind this Board of Trustees that the town officials have quick access to definitive answers at the highest state level. And these are answers from an authority from which realistically there's not going to go upstream much farther. There probably is no real appeal. And that authority is the Colorado Department of State. The Colorado Department of State, the Election Division, and that department has been defining Colorado law for years. They are just a phone call away. Cities and towns and municipal offices, and you people out there, you can pick up a phone and you can call, and you can ask them questions about any election question, and they have got the answers. They've been in the business for years. There aren't very many new questions. Well, the apparent preference of the board, which is this group up here, however, was not to do this sort of homework, and they chose rather to say what they liked and do what they wanted to, rather than finding out what the statutes actually were. And on the subject of knowing statutes, I was on the receiving end, and some others have reported allegations that trustees have told them that they could not vote, they weren't really residents, and their votes would not be counted. And on that note, I would say, if you have issues with the state of Colorado and what they require by ways of criteria for what it takes to become a registered voter and resident, you should take it up with the state. And on the second issue about your votes will not be counted, this supposes that you have foreknowledge of criminal activity, which would be election tampering. When you say to someone, your votes will not be counted, what is that? Anyway, the bottom line to who is eligible. The bottom line is that most of this board, if not all of them, were wrong, and willfully so. And they have ignored their obligation to be trustworthy. They've ignored the obligation to find out the facts, and they've promoted their opinions as if, to the people of Pitkin, as if they were something solid, and many have believed what they have heard. So what is the state of Colorado's position in this matter? Well, I know because I called. It was easy. It was just a phone call away. And I spoke with the internal operations and legal manager of the election division of Colorado Department of State. Several issues were discussed, but no question that I asked him caused even the slightest hesitation. I put forth every objection cited by our town clerk that I received by way of the letters forwarded to me. And without hesitation, he shredded all of them. One of the questions that I asked, and I did this because I wanted to be able to come here and present a question that seemed to get the most press. And that question was in consideration of Title 3110-301, which states that in order to be eligible to run, that a person must have resided 12 consecutive months immediately preceding the date of election. Has resided 12 consecutive months immediately preceding the date of election. And so my question was this: in consideration of that, if I take a 5-week vacation, am I eligible? Am I ineligible to run? What do you think? Well, I surely shouldn't have asked that. But his answer was whether you're taking a 5-week vacation or whether you're snowbirding for 5 months, it makes no difference. You are eligible to run and you are eligible to vote. What can I say? I'm a bit mystified. You know, this board voted to hire a consultant at a considerable price, and probably rightly so, to make sure that we got our election in order. But when the issue about eligibility and questions on that avenue came up, they didn't even bother to make a phone call. You know, if you got a question in this country, you can get to the top pretty quick. So my petition to run for trustee was denied because nobody bothered. Nobody bothered to find out. Nobody bothered to make a phone call. It was denied solely upon opinions. Opinions that took precedence over investigating the facts. This is the 21st century, folks. Pitkin is not under a rock anymore. The internet, YouTube, social media have brought us, Pitkin, that quaint little town, at the end of the pavement, on the road to adventure, before the eyes of the world, and also into the full light of Colorado statutory law, and just getting by is no longer an option. And I propose tonight that the actions of this Board of Trustees are frequently a liability to Pitkin. A liability that has cost us money and pitted neighbor against neighbor. A liability because of an eagerness to promote personal agendas at the expense of the town. A liability because the only vision they have is backward. Boy, I wish things could be like they used to be. A liability because the 21st century is on us and they don't know what that means or even how to respond. They're not prepared and equipped to take care of Pitkin. So it doesn't matter that I like some of these trustees or all of them. That doesn't matter. What matters is that I think some of them need to retire, and we've got an election coming up, and we've got some new names on the ballot, and I think we ought to stick them in and let them see what they can do. And I think if we don't make some changes, it's going to cost us all even more than it has already. Now here's what you got tonight. What you got, see this? This is the I didn't know card. That excuse is gone. You've been told where to find out the answers, and you've been told what the answers are, and if you don't believe it, you should go find out. So when you find yourself somewhere down the road and somebody says, didn't someone tell you? Didn't you know? You are without excuse. And this business about telling folks you can't vote, you can't run, you're not eligible, you're not a resident, your votes aren't going to be counted, Shame. Shame. Thank you very much.
Tom, I have a
Oh, and I will give a copy of this letter to town clerk, and you can get a copy anytime you want.
question. You said several members of the council. Would you name them?
In regards to
Who
what?
would ever tell somebody they can't vote unless they don't live here and they're not registered to vote?
I said there were allegations. Now, I have been
Okay, a
told
lot
personally.
of what you've said is hearsay then.
No,
Okay.
just the allegations in that regard. Would you like me to read that to you again?
No, Tom, in 2 years, you run.
I do plan to.
Good.
In fact, when I looked through all of the rules associated with running for the town of Pitkin, what I was looking for was a reason that I couldn't run. Because I have been on boards
Right.
and committees,
Okay.
and I know what a job it is. I'm thinking, I don't need that. On the other hand, I have an interest in Pitkin,
Yeah.
which
that's what you
means
do.
I do need to do that, which is why I filed a petition.
Okay.
And as I said, I'll file this with clerk.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Yes.
I
And you
have
can-
one other request from Jesse.
You have to limit it to 5 minutes.
Yes, I was watching, he was right there, he was right on the 5 minutes. I was watching. Yes,
Hi, my name's Bob O'Hare. That's going to be a tough act for me to follow. But I'm here, I'm a lawyer from Gunnison, Colorado. I represent Jesse and Jared Garrettson, represent Chris and Candy Nasso, and I've been keeping my eyes on all of you concerning your enactment of the short-term rental ordinances. I believe I've written letters to the mayor and the town trustees pointing out in prior attempts to enforce those ordinances against my clients of the infirmities that were in those ordinances. And now I'm here to talk about the ordinance that you are planning on enacting tonight. And I don't know if I would get an opportunity to speak later when you're considering the ordinance or not. So I wanted to come up here right now and talk to you about it. Okay. One of the things that I discovered in attempting to advise my clients on what rights they had with respect to renting out their house on a short-term basis was that this town does not have a repository where I can obtain the town charter. Can somebody tell me where I can get the charter? I don't know where it is. When I went to look at the zoning ordinance, where is the zoning ordinance? Couldn't find out where it was. I called Nancy Deutsch, who was the town clerk, and Nancy said, you know what, I don't know, some of the stuff is here at my house, some of the stuff is maybe in this building, but I don't know where most of that stuff is, okay? I can tell you that unless you're able to find an ordinance located somewhere, there's no municipality or no entity that can enforce an ordinance if nobody knows where it is or what it says. That's not the official copy
Miss
of,
Susie?
not the official
This is
copy of
not
the ordinance.
comment time. This is
The
his
ordinance that is on the internet is not signed, it's not certified, it didn't have a map attached to it. And so my request to my clients was, go get me the official copy of the ordinance, because I don't know if this ordinance that has this XX on it is the official copy of the ordinance. It's not signed, it's not dated, no map attached. Okay, so what I'm saying about what you're gonna do tonight is, number one, and you must be Susie Metzler.
LER.
I would like somebody to tell me where I can get those official copies of ordinances where any citizen of the town of Pitkin or Gunnison County of the United States can walk in and get them. I bet you can't tell me where I can get those official copies.
I got it.
But, yeah, but I don't know if they could.
It should be in a
compete
public place. Okay,
Well,
not there. That's the first thing I'd like to comment on. So I would love to get copies of those, so I can advise my clients as to whether you all are acting appropriately and in accordance with your own charter. Okay? The other thing, and with respect to your short-term rental ordinance here, I just have a couple questions. Okay?
One thing I would like to say is, this is an item that is going to be on the agenda. I didn't know what you were going to speak on,
Okay.
but that's an
That's-
agenda item, and you
And
can
I'll have
talk
an
about it
opportunity to speak then?
at that time, yes.
Okay, then
Since when?
That's an agenda item, isn't it?
Yeah, but you typically don't invite public comment during agenda items.
Well, if, okay, then,
Okay, so one of the
You do whatever
reasons
you
I
want,
was
son.
here to speak
I've never
right
cut you
now
off.
is so I would be able to speak and have an opportunity. Okay, so that's just general stuff, but now I'll talk about this ordinance here. And actually, all I want to do is ask you all a couple questions, and they're just rhetorical questions, okay? So I think I know the answer. Number one, do you all believe that you satisfied all the notice and public hearing requirements for enacting the ordinance? And I'd say, well, without knowing what your charter says, you probably haven't. Or you can't answer that question in the affirmative, okay? Second thing, do you believe that nothing in that ordinance is prohibited by law? I'm not so sure that that's accurate. By the state constitution or the United States Constitution? Don't know if that's accurate either. Do you think that that ordinance is written without any errors in it? I suggest you take a look at it again. Do you think that ordinance sets forth sufficient criteria to determine whether or not an application for a short-term rental license can be granted? I can tell you, I'm suggesting that the answer is no. I think you all need to take a look at your ordinance again, your process and procedures that you've been operating as a town, because at some point, as Tom Gibbs said, somebody's going to call you on it, and you're going to be in court, and you're going to find out that you didn't take the steps that you needed to take, and maybe it's out of ignorance or lack of knowledge, but I'm just cautioning you that may happen at some point. And then, if I don't get a chance to speak again, I've now said, and I appreciate it, Mr. Mayor.
okay,
Thank you.
okay. Thank you, Bob. Okay, that was all I had under public comments. We'll go down to the commissioners. Building? Anything under building?
Working on a few permits,
Anything in particular, or just?
the two buildings that Todd and Bill are building, I already paperwork, I just
Okay.
haven't given the official card.
Anything under zoning? Fire department?
John, do you want to talk?
No, I have nothing to say about the fire department.
We're just getting our uniforms and stuff, so we'll make sure
Okay,
our pieces up.
probably nobody under Parks and Rec, environmental health?
I'm getting ready to send out the letters.
Okay, streets?
Yes. Nothing to say.
They're still there. Ditches?
No report.
They're probably there too. Cemetery? No report. PHCA?
No report.
Okay, town hall?
No report.
Okay, okay. Went through that, down to old business. Vote to approve short-term rental ordinance. And I'm sure that nobody wants to speak on this.
I do, actually. In the ordinance, in several places, it talks about things that we need to adopt by resolution, like fees. Speak louder.
Can't hear you.
We need to adopt some or do some resolutions for some things that go with the ordinance, because like the fees, and when it talks about renewals, there's an acknowledgement that the person in a year later has to well, the acknowledgement that they have to do when they first do the application. That's all in this ordinance. The fees, let's see, I made copies for everyone. If I can, that's why I was a little bit late. I did an application for the renewal. Let me see what else. Yeah, that's about it. I think it's just those 3 documents. You guys don't have them. But I think that those have to be, we need to do resolutions to adopt those.
The
And-
fee schedule,
Yep, I just, and it's not final at all at
we
this point.
we never finalized the
Right, but I mean,
fee
at least
schedule.
now we have something on paper so that we can look at it and decide among ourselves and take maybe some public comment on that, that sort of thing. Because without that, it would not have been, there wouldn't have really been much of an ordinance. Oh, there's something else too, is the application, and, okay, please go with it.
Well,
There's 3 more sheets here.
This
The
is,
application was not attached, and the other things that were with the original that I wrote and gave to Jim were not there either. There, it talks about these items being provided with, the application. So, see, is that
Well,
enough, or?
with these things not,
And I think you've had all this, most, these last 3 pieces you've had before. The other 3 sheets I just did this afternoon, late this afternoon. Because I was reading the ordinance and it says, this will be specified by something that we do as a resolution, so those things were not specified in the ordinance.
then if we have to go over this and make these changes or additions, I think we should postpone voting on it.
Well, I talked to the attorney about that this afternoon. He said that these could be looked at and adopted by resolution. They wouldn't go in, they would not take effect. They could, I don't know, I think he said that they could be done by resolution.
But we don't
tonight.
have the resolution.
Well, I know we could vote on the resolution next month, but at least it wouldn't delay it 2 more months. That's why I sat with community. Did it.
Jim, do you have an opinion on that?
Do I have an opinion?
Yes.
As to what question specifically,
Well,
Mr. Mayor?
if we
in
should
terms
go
of-
ahead and vote them, she's coming up with, fee schedule not included and and this was not included, probably didn't get published with it.
It did not.
It wasn't.
And
So-
my suggestion would be that at some level, it'd be great to have this thing done. Pardon me. There's been a petition for a referendum that I believe has been approved by the town clerk, and if the requisite signatures are required, then this whole process goes into limbo, which is fine, which is a celebration of the democratic spirit. It is what it is. With that being said, if I had my druthers, and given the divisive nature of everything that this has brought forward in this town, I would want to see the resolution before it was approved, or before this ordinance was approved, the resolution for the fee schedule and for the applications. Because I think that given the divisive nature of this ordinance, whether people are for it or against it, at the very least, if it's passed or if it's not passed, everyone has the opportunity to review all the material before such vote is held.
Well, clearly, at least most of the people here are not in favor of this anyway. So,
Steve, not in favor of what?
of this ordinance.
Based on the data I've got, 70% of the people do not want short-term rentals down at Bitkin.
How many people?
70%,
Well, I don't know, we're not gonna go into
based
that.
on
This
the
one's only for
letters.
resident, or
we
for
received.
commercial
This
use
is-
anyway.
Way,
And-
way high. I mean, we've been over and over and over
Yes,
that.
and we've had many public meetings, and technically, this ordinance does not apply to anybody who's currently operating a short-term rental, because this is only for business zoning, and nobody's currently doing one in business zoning.
It applies to them in that it tells them that that's not legal to do it in residential.
Well,
Yes, that's right.
yes, it does.
Okay, but now the board has had 3 of these documents since August or September, just so you know. The last 3 that I gave you, some of them were stapled together,
Well,
some of them not. But I understand that, it'd be better to wait possibly. It sounds like the attorney would rather wait another month to take the final vote. Then at this point, do you think that we could have a hearing on it? Because that is actually required by statute, that there be a hearing. And
Well-
it hasn't been published to have a hearing either. I mean,
A hearing for what
a
precisely?
hearing for the ordinance. An ordinance, when it's being passed, needs to have a hearing, and we have not. We've discussed it for a year, yes.
What are we doing presently, ma'am?
Well, is this a hearing? It wasn't shown on the agenda as a hearing.
This is a public hearing.
Okay, well, good. If that satisfies that requirement, that's great. But if not, I mean, I kind of was with that of Mr. O'Hare, in that I wasn't going to say, yeah, we're doing everything just right, because I'm not sure that we have. And I'm
Well-
trying to stick with that,
That's why I would like to have some time to talk to the attorney first.
You mean this attorney?
Yes, our attorney.
Not to sound offensive, but that almost sounded like a vote of no confidence.
When I said this attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
I just didn't know what he meant, that's
Well,
all.
I'm
just
not
Because I
gonna
mean,
talk.
we're talking to you now, I mean,
I'm just making sure.
yeah.
Yes.
Whatever you do, do it quickly. If you want to,
Special meeting.
if you want to postpone so that you can vote on everything at the same time, I would recommend you schedule a special meeting. Because if you have a referendum, and this is on, Mr. Mayor, may I deviate from
Sure.
the agenda for just a moment? I'd ask that you put, discuss referendum on the agenda.
Yes, I did.
CRS 3111-105 provides for, and the following sections provide for the protocol for a referendum. If a person files a petition for referendum, which has been done, and the town clerk reviews that petition and approves it, which has been done, then that person can seek signatures, autographs from electors within the community, and upon receipt of 5% or more signatures, can submit that to the town clerk, and the statute provides that the town shall then have a forthwith reconsideration of the subject ordinance, and if they do not agree with the contents of the referendum, then an election shall be held not less than 60 and not more than 150 days thereafter, is my recollection. My point simply being that I think that Mr. Buchanan is absolutely correct in that this issue has been beaten through the dirt, pros and cons, and I do think that there's some real value to having the application together with the fee schedule adopted at the same time, because I think that for better or for worse, that way it's all there. Public can comment on it to the extent that they deem it appropriate, but all I'm saying is do it quickly. If that's what we want to do, let's have a special meeting to review the resolution in terms of the fee schedules, and let's have, or even a work session on the fee schedules. And maybe we do a work session followed like 30 seconds later by a special meeting to adopt the proposed fee schedule so we can publish it, just to be abundantly cautious in terms of people can't complain about notice. For example, I don't know if anyone noticed, this meeting was noticed in the paper in terms of the resolution for the election appropriation. So I would submit to you that do it quickly, that's all.
So you're saying that we should have a special meeting?
I'm saying that you should do whatever the Board of Trustees deems appropriate.
But, okay, but if we just, right now, just vote to approve, is that gonna be legal and binding, or have we made a mistake?
I don't know how to answer that question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I think that, first of all, Mr. O'Hare is both a colleague, a friend, and I'm in his office every single day. Now, with that being said, do I think that he was providing this board some histrionics? Absolutely. Do I think he was puffing to express a position? Absolutely. He was being an advocate. Do I agree with that position? Not necessarily. But I think that the question is not one of legality, but one of how does the town of Pitkin resolve some of the division within its citizenry in terms of this issue. And that was the point that I made in terms of voting on it all at once. Not whether or not it was legal, but simply how does one address the schism that has been created within this community?
Well, as far as that goes, as far as the division, I think one thing that we could do is wait till after the election, see if there's any changes on the board and how those people feel, if there are changes.
No. We've been working on this. This has been our baby. This has been our problem.
This has been I've worked my heart out this year.
I understand that. And for me personally, the only part of it that I support is the septic. The rest of it is largely because this is a town run by volunteers. Everybody volunteers their time. And who is going to get to run around and check all this stuff and enforce this stuff? Now, you said that I think the chairman of the zoning board is responsible.
Whatever this says, I can't tell you.
I
off the
think
top of my
that's-
head.
I think
But
it says the
pretty
zoning
much The
enforcement-
zoning board went through and took away a lot of that stuff.
I think
that
it says the
was- I don't
zoning
think there's much left of
enforcement.
that.
I think it's the chairman of the zoning board, and when the zoning board meets to pick a chairman, everybody's going to take a step backwards.
Well, I don't think there's much of any inspection in here. In fact, it only talks about inspection if like the board or whoever, the zoning board feels that something isn't quite right with an application. Isn't that right, Jim? That
Well-
that's when there's an inspection. There aren't many things like inspections. There are times when an enforcement officer may need to go to a home and say, look, you guys are putting tents up in the yard and this ordinance doesn't allow that. I mean,
What happens if somebody's not paying the permit fee? Then he has to go tell them that they're not
well,
paying the
absolutely,
permit.
yeah. I mean,
Well, yeah, you
that's
see.
a violation. They get fined,
And-
they'd have to even pay more than.
That's kind of my point is you're expecting an awful lot of volunteers, and who you're going to find who's willing to do this.
Well, to
And
me,
I'm coming back to thing is this going to be enforceable, and can we do
is
this?
anything enforceable in this town? Is this, that's the whole thing that I come down to is, why are we a town? Ohio City does fine and they're not a town.
Yeah.
No, it's not really a town.
Well, if we were not a town, for one thing, nobody would build anything here. And the houses that are currently being built would not would not be being built.
So, I
And
mean,
you wouldn't have ATVs ripping up and down your street on a
Well,
daily
that's,
basis.
that's a subject we don't want to go into.
I'm
I'm just trying to
Just
say
saying.
that I don't know how enforceable that this really is.
well, okay.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask a couple questions?
Okay, Ramon?
Just for clarification, to start with, I'd like to ask Jim, because it's not been said, am I correct in assuming that the referendum you referred to is specifically about this ordinance
That is correct.
and to repeal it,
That is correct, Mr. Reed.
an ordinance that hadn't even been adopted yet?
That's correct.
Okay. Secondly, and I'll address this to you, Mr. Mayor, are you going to take any public input at all on this ordinance?
I think that's going to happen in 2 months.
What do you mean in 2
I
months?
think he's making a reference to the election,
Yes.
5 April of 2016.
Yes, that's going to be the driving force. And say if right now, if we pass this thing and the election changes the board, the first thing they might do is repeal it. I don't know.
I
just telling
didn't
you.
ask, about that. I asked if the public is going to be allowed to input.
Yes.
You're saying that our only input is the vote in April?
Do you want me to go by and talk to everybody or ask everybody to hear to speak?
No, I would like the public board, the town board of trustees of the town of Pitkin, to take input on an ordinance that they're considering for adoption from the public that you represent. That's all. That's what I'm asking. There has not been a single opportunity for the public to comment on this ordinance to the board.
What were all the public meetings that we had?
There was this document that you're talking about has not been available to the public until it was published on whatever the date was last month. And this is the first meeting that you have held since then
That's correct.
that this has been a public document. So there has been no opportunity until now for the public to comment on this document. I mean, yeah, you've had public meetings, sat and discussed it amongst yourselves, but nobody in the public has been allowed to see the document until the past month.
So do you ought to
And
think
so-
we ought to have more time for the public to read this? Is that what you're saying?
Mr. Mayor,
I think I've had time to read it now. I would like time to comment on it,
Okay.
to give my opinion. Maybe others would like to give theirs. We've heard opinion from an attorney on it under, your agenda, which says for items that are not on the agenda. Are you going to allow the public who lives in this town the same opportunity? That's what I'm asking.
Well, you are speaking right now, and I'm allowing it.
So, Mr. Mayor, would you like to allow a public comment session before you provide any further discussion of the board on this topic?
That would be okay. I mean, I don't know that, I thought that's what we're doing. Or have you finished, or do you
No.
have something to say?
He has yet
Okay,
begun.
okay.
I was asking if I'm going to have that opportunity.
Okay. Yes,
If
you
I
did.
am, okay, I'd like to proceed then. I have some general comments about the proposed ordinance and some comments that are specific to specific language. First, in general, I'll start by saying I have some very serious concerns about this ordinance, not because of what it's doing, but just the way it's written. And those concerns are the nature that the requirements of this ordinance, things like basic standards, are missing. The requirements for a license application is fairly specific and probably adequate. But where are the requirements for operating a short-term rental in Pitkin? I don't see them in this ordinance. Thank you, Susie, for providing me today a copy of an ordinance that apparently this one was originally based upon. It was discussed at one of the committee meetings last spring that you set up, and I hadn't seen it until now, and that's the ordinance of the town of Silverton, Colorado. I did have a chance to look at that today, which I didn't get until this afternoon, and I found it interesting that it's a little over 5-page document. Out of those 5 pages, over 2 pages are under a heading that says, vacation home rentals shall demonstrate compliance with the following. And it lists, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N. That's what's missing in this ordinance. I don't really know what you're enforcing in this ordinance. And I think that you're going to have problems with it because of that. And as an example, I'll tell you that, there is a section in there that about approval of this, and it's on a new application for short-term rental. The Board of Trustees is to approve or deny. It doesn't say anything about deny, but there's no basis for that approval or denial in this document that I can see. There are reference to things such as requiring in the application an engineer's report that shall address, let me find the words, occupant capacity. That's the word in this ordinance that requires an engineer to look at. There's also a definition in here for maximum occupancy. Those may be the same thing, may not. There's nothing tying them together. Nor is there anything in here that says that an applicant for a short-term rental shall be required to comply with whatever that maximum occupancy or occupant capacity is. This is what's missing. It really doesn't say what's required to do a short-term rental. I would suggest that you need to revisit it and add that to this. I'll give you some suggestions that it should at least include maximum occupancy as a requirement determined from the engineer certification. But that's something that's also needs to be, you need to have some serious discussion about it. I haven't heard that at any of the meetings. I did bring it up at the end of one meeting, and I haven't heard any response or discussion. That's a difficult thing to enforce, maximum occupancy. Probably can be done. In the Silverton ordinance that I read today has one way of addressing that. But it's simply lacking. I think that I know you have talked in the past about parking requirements, but that's all it's been is talk. Are you going to put those in the zoning ordinance? Are you
We
going
decided
to
you can't have
have them
parking
here?
regulations for just one group of people.
I didn't say that you should, but I think that if the town does adopt parking requirements, which are probably going to be needed if short-term rentals continue to grow, that those requirements ought to be addressed as well in this ordinance. They're not. The ordinance, one of the things that's been talked about and totally left out of the ordinance, maybe for good reason, maybe not, because no reasons have been given for anything in it, is basic safety requirements. Should there be any basic safety requirements in a business and a building that's being used to serve the general public. You know, it simply doesn't address that. Now let me give you some specifics of what I'm talking about with the language. The application, and this is a quote from the ordinance talking about the application requirements. The application shall further require an engineer's evaluation and approval of the OWTS and a certification of occupant capacity. That's what I referred to before. That needs to be a whole lot more specific, and I think most, if not all of you, read the letters from the attorneys when violation notices were sent out last summer. One of those, or several of those letters were from Mr. O'Hare, who addressed you earlier. If you're not more specific than this, what he said in that letter is going to be all there is to address this. Generalities that are actually probably more applicable to housing or residential use than a commercial use like this. You know, in that one sentence, there's about 4 questions that I have. What does approval mean? You know, for an engineer to give approval of a septic system and even certification. Has anyone bothered to talk with an engineer? Maybe Matt could help us about what type of language would an engineer actually use in addressing a system that was being proposed for this use. And for this use should also be a part of it, because what was addressed in the letters from Mr. O'Hare and others that you received was not for a short-term rental use, it was about residential use. You need to get really tight and specific on this language. Another section that I would suggest changing and tightening up some is section 6 on the application procedure, which basically puts the burden of doing most of the work, such as publication and sending letters to property owners, on the town clerk, which I think is a big mistake. You can put that burden on the applicant where it belongs. The applicant should have to pay to publish notice of a public hearing, and the applicant should have to pay to send out certified letters to the property owners if that's what you're going to require.
Can I just have a little break here for just a second? We can get back to it. I just want to ask for a show of hands. Does anybody in the room like this ordinance and think that we should approve it? I want a show of hands. Who thinks we ought to vote to approve this thing?
Or part of it. I think we need some kind of thing.
But if there are problems, we need to get the problems worked out.
I agree, and that's why I'm trying to address it.
But I think, you know, if we're going to have to do all this, we may have to go back to a committee and start over. Let's work on it now.
Yeah, I won't serve on that.
Well, Jesse? Just a second, I'll get back to you.
And I have history of short-term rentals in Pipkin since 1969. I have a gentleman on the council. When I bought the place, I asked him if I could get a write-off to have a controlled burn by the fire department. He said, why in the hell would you do that? You just spent $40,000 on it with insurance fixing it up. So we went in and looked at it and did a whale of a job of fixing it up. He said, you know, if it's something like this, you ought to be renting it. And after I got it fixed up, I rented it. And as soon as I got it rented, Susie contacted me and said, if you're going to do this, you need to collect sales and bed tax. I did that.
Oh,
Yes, you did.
Absolutely, Susie.
okay, this is not...
Where's the Bible? I'll stand here.
Jesse,
my hand on the Bible.
Jesse, can I interrupt you for just 1 second? I apologize. Susie, Let Jesse have the floor.
Okay,
This isn't a give and take.
all right. I just
Respect
like you to
him,
not
respect
say
Mr.
things that I
Reed.
don't believe
Let them
are
have
right.
their time.
I'd like to have a rebuttal with this lady. She is one of my dear friends. Now, I'll get back to the issues. When I started doing short-term rental, for 2 years, we had 0 comment, good, bad, or ugly. Even in December of 14, our clerk said, man, we've had a windfall here for income on sales tax. One business has been contributing sales tax. When this all started, there was not a written complaint. There was a verbal complaint in November, December about the previous July. No way can you check that out. The energy you have put into this ordinance, are you going to put that kind of energy into every other short-term or every other business in a residential area in Pitkin? Are you going to treat all of us people in a residential area the same? That's going to take a lot of time. There are ordinances after ordinances in Pitkin that we have looked the other way with and never even scolded anybody on it. Our new municipal court and our magistrate are allowed to be very busy if we get all of these ordinances and nuisances enforced. I think our current trustees have bit off a lot more than Pitkin wants to chew. What's happened with the sharing of a tractor, sharing of a trailer, helping somebody with wood, all of these things, helping with ditches, like you said earlier, volunteers. We're shooting ourselves in the foot with strife. I love every one of you guys. I've had every one of you, I think, in our home for dinner. In the last year and a half, I've had people with very ugly remarks to me. I'm sorry I had to present this.
Okay,
I've
well-
been trying to keep my mouth shut for a year and a half.
Well,
Because I want it resolved in court. And we didn't get there, and I have no idea why you dropped it.
okay.
Thank you.
But Mr. Reed here has pointed out and proposed at least a dozen different things that are probably wrong. And we can't just pick this up and scribble in all these changes. I mean, and then vote on it. That's what I'm saying. We can't do this right.
I'm not asking you to.
Now, Jim
But
is
can I
saying, let's do
finish?
it right now, but we can't
I
just
mean,
pencil in all these
Mr.
changes.
Gibb and Mr. O'Hare weren't interrupted. Could I finish?
Sure you can.
Thank you. Another part of this same section under the application says that a public hearing shall be scheduled at the next regularly scheduled town meeting. I'd like to, each one of you on the board, ask yourselves, what to you does public hearing mean? Because I don't think there's any consensus here. And I think that you need to do that. As I said at the beginning, you're a public body, and listening to the public and presenting things to the public are part of the normal public process. I think you need to discuss that and set a policy on public hearings. What is a public hearing and how are they to be held? If you do that, I've got some experience with that, Steve. I tell you, your job will be a lot easier if you set, what a public hearing is and how to deal with it. It says, the following section says that the town of Pitkin Board of Trustees shall render its decision at the public hearing. What are you going to base that decision on? I mean, I give everyone the benefit of the doubt sitting at that table that you've read this ordinance. Tell me what in this ordinance you're going to base a decision on whether to grant a license or not. It's not there. It's missing.
Well, it is missing, but some of it's in the stuff that was left out because it needed to be added by resolution so that if those things needed to be changed, it wouldn't have to redo the whole ordinance. Is that what I'm getting, Jim? That's pretty much, I mean, some of the specifics are.
Well,
in the
Susie, I
document.
haven't even seen that
Yeah,
document.
Right.
But I have to disagree with you. An application is not standards of approval. And that's what you need in here. Things such as, can the board place conditions on approval? If you look at a specific property, you know, why is it even set up for the board to review these? Must be some reason, right? It's not just to rubber stamp it and say yes, you don't need to bother if that's the case. There must be some reason behind it. That should be a part of the ordinance. If you don't, you're setting yourselves up for failure, just as Mr. O'Hare said. And believe me, I am approaching this the opposite way. I'm not threatening a lawsuit against you like the veiled comments Mr. O'Hare made. I'm trying to offer some constructive criticism here because I think that you need to get it right. Then, and this is the last comment on the language I'll make. This is under the penalties section and enforcement basically. And it says operating short-term rental without a license, any person including without limitation, the owner, property management, etc. And I'm, rather than read this entire paragraph, I'm going to cut to the end, which is the exception to this enforcement. It says, upon passage of the ordinance creating this ordinance, any property operating as a short-term rental shall have 3 months to apply for a license without violation of this section.
Mr. Reed, I just will have you know that on my copy, my one comment for the board today was to draw a line through that sentence.
Okay, because I mean, I read that and my first reaction is, why on God's earth do they need 3 months to fill out an application? If a property that's currently under operation as a short-term rental is so bad that it's going to take them 3 months to prepare an application, you ought to shut them down now, not 3 months from now. I mean, that's been the problem that hasn't been dealt with in this town. In addition to that, in an earlier section, it says that the operator of a short-term rental in the residential district, as defined by the Town of Pitkin zoning code, shall be deemed to be the operation of a short-term rental without a license, as addressed in hereinafter. Put these two things together and they basically give anyone illegally in residential area currently operating a short-term rental 3 months to continue. And if you, as tends to happen, if approving this ordinance gets put off for 2 or 3 months, that 3 months is going to occur in the only real season that we have here, and basically those two things together give them, you know, another full summer of rental without the town being able to say anything by virtue of your own ordinance that you're trying to adopt. So anyhow, I support the board enacting this ordinance, but it's not ready yet. I think it needs more work, and my suggestion would be to appoint a committee. Don't try to do it as a committee of the whole. Appoint 2 or 3 people. It doesn't have to be totally board members, but it should be a small committee to take what you have and fix it so that it's something that you can adopt and the attorney can enforce, hopefully, as you move forward.
Oh.
That's my comments.
Kathy,
and I will give you copies
you haven't spoken
with
yet.
more
I was
details.
under the impression, this is confusing, because this summer, there was a short-term rental committee formed
Yes.
to address how to implement short-term rentals. That committee, it was my impression, was there to come up with guidelines for short-term rentals, primarily in residential. Comments were made during those committee meetings that they didn't feel it was an issue in commercial. And now this ordinance is being put together, and all the work of that short-term rental committee was simply cast aside, and it's been one sentence, point blank, that short-term rentals in residential are illegal. So what was the point of wasting everybody's time this summer to have people pour their sweat and blood into a committee to come up with guidelines to simply disregard it? That's one thing. And isn't this all a moot point if we can't even find a town charter? I mean, really, how are we operating legally?
We're a statutory town, and we operate on state statutes.
Thank you.
That's how we do it.
And
We don't
once
re-
more, someone within the town has lost or took some of the town documents.
That-
The
that-
town documents are missing. That's
That-
the way it is.
That is part of the
Mr. Mayor.
problem. The town has been run by volunteers since 1879, and things have come up missing. But we are a statutory town, and we run off of state statutes, and we do not really need to produce a charter. But I
Mr.
guess,
Mayor, may I make a comment, please?
yes,
I served on that short-term committee, so there was a lot of my sweat, and believe me, I did not sleep on Monday nights, okay, just so everybody knows. The problem with this whole deal, in my opinion, is that the issue is not short-term rentals. The issue is zoning, okay? And the courts have upheld since 1926 that zoning is not unconstitutional. And so, you know, we're worried about septic tanks, we're worried about a dog barking, we're worried about trailers parking. The issue is zoning. We have zoning, respect the zoning. And then, I don't care if there's 1,000 short-term rentals on Main Street, wherever it's commercial. But I am one of the few blessed people in this town that I have a short-term rental across the street from me. Okay, I've had to drive through my front yard to get around the trailers, okay? I've had four-wheelers idle for an hour and a half, starting at 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday and going until finally they left. Okay, so it's zoning, it's the character of my neighborhood, it's the character and condition of the place that I chose to move here to live in. And I didn't choose to live next door to an unlicensed hotel. Okay, so the question is zoning. It's not short-term rentals, it's put a business in the business district, put residential in residential district, and then everybody can be happy. But zoning is not unconstitutional, and it has been held to not be unconstitutional.
oh, okay, I guess at this point, we could go on the whole night. I will just leave it up to the board. If we get if I get a motion and I get a second, then we will go ahead and vote on it. So does anybody want, if somebody makes a motion and somebody makes a second, we will vote, otherwise we won't. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion, but not on that.
On what?
I'm voting on the short-term rental. I'd like to make a motion on something else.
Well, right now, we're talking about the short-term rental ordinance. We're not talking, and I want to know, does anybody want to make a motion? Does anybody want to make a second? If they don't, then we're not going to vote on it. Okay.
Cindy, is it in relation to this ordinance?
Yes, it's what you talked about earlier.
Then you can make a motion along those lines.
It's making a motion to have a special meeting to discuss this and these documents, these new documents, and then vote on it, or, get it recorded, do everything, all the steps we're supposed to do, so that we can vote on it, on a resolution or whatever you want to call it, and the ordinance next month.
I think that
Steve,
instead of
we've
us,
been working on this
that's
for
right.
so long.
And if we have a special meeting, we will continue to work on it. It needs to be just a committee of a few people to sit down and try to work on these problems. you want the town board to have a public meeting and try to take everybody's input and and make changes? You'll be there, you won't do it, you'll be there all night, you'll never get it changed.
So
would this
make
board be open to the public?
I guess it would be. I know we already had one group that worked on this. Thank you, John. But if there's going to be this much argument and discontent, we ought to look at what Mr. Reed said and what other people said. And apparently nobody's making a motion to approve this. So.
I agree with Ramon, it needs to be fine-tuned better.
fine-tuned, yes.
Okay, then,
But I do have to say one thing, is that the committee that worked on it for 8 weeks back in the summer, every week, had some really great suggestions that then when they got to the zoning board said, how are we ever gonna check all that stuff out? You know, I mean, you're saying there aren't a lot of specifics. I think a lot of those specifics got knocked out of it by the zoning board because they didn't want, and I understand, we are all volunteers. I mean, we aren't policemen. What this town mostly needs is somebody that would be serving the law enforcement part of it, you know, or the whole control thing we just don't have. And I mean, I don't know where we're gonna get that. I don't see
Well,
where we can ever get that.
that's going to be
So-
hard too.
But I mean, isn't it that you're saying, what Ramona's saying is tighten it up, have more restrictions, make it more specific, but yet I think by design, at this point, from the process that it's gone through, it's looser, and that may not work.
Well, you know, I still think you ought to wait till after April 5th, because you do all this work, and if there's a new board, it could all get flushed.
That's speculation, I don't think. Are you still having a public hearing?
We're still talking about this, yes.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
I would preface it by saying that I came to this meeting intending not to say anything. But I've listened to quite a bit of innuendo and histrionics, as the attorney said. And I think you have before you a proposed ordinance that is not perfect. It's been through numerous discussions, starting with the committee John and I served on, through the zoning board, to your board and your work sessions, where you didn't want to be that specific and you didn't want to do this and that. The fact of the matter is that any attorney in any community can come to a board and imply that there are weaknesses in a proposed or existing ordinance that a community has adopted. Then it resides with that attorney and his clients to determine if they want to go to the expense and put the community and its taxpayers to the expense of a lengthy legal challenge to determine whether or not there are, you know, justifiably identified flaws in the regulation. I would suggest to this board that you have an ordinance before you that has been discussed a great deal, has some very basic and simple requirements, that you need to get a license, be located in the proper area of the community, and meet a few other very minimal requirements. That's not perfect. It's not as thorough as our committee would have recommended. Has more requirements than others might like to see. But the point is, you've been through this for over a year, and if you're going to have a regulation, you need to adopt it, and then let's see if people really want to put the town through the trials and tribulations and expense of having a referendum vote and a court challenge of the ordinance you've adopted. Whether or not there's a change in the town council is a moot point at this point. We don't know what's going to happen. So I would urge you to move forward and take the action the town council is supposed to do and govern.
Sorry, Kathy, but you already spoke once, and we can't keep going back and forth.
Well, I'm just saying, if it's such a hot topic, why not put the ordinance
Well,
on the ballot? And
I
let the
was-
town vote on it?
That's another good thought. Well, yes, back there, and I can't see who it is. Oh, Joe.
No, it's okay. Gwen and I both worked on that committee too, very
And
hard.
we both support the Owens and John Wise. Let's get it done.
I
Let's put
agree.
it on the ballot. It can come up.
No, it needs to.
I mean, let's put it on the, let's vote it.
It's on your agenda.
Well,
tonight.
okay.
We've worked on this for long.
I've asked the trustees for a motion and for a second. So far, I haven't got it.
Steve, I make a motion that we approve the short-term zoning ordinance as written with one minor change that the attorney recommended in the 3-month
That line above.
frontage.
And I'll second it.
Okay, I got a motion from Matt and I got a second from Susie. All in favor of approving the short-term
More
ordinance?
discussion, Mr.
Is there any more from the board? Is there any more questions?
I do have one question. Did it ever get added back in that it can only be one property per owner?
No, it
Or
did
did
not.
that-
That is not in here.
No.
And I would submit to you that the town of Silverton, when they're sued on that topic, will lose. Because I
Okay.
think that the mere fact that a person owns 1, 3, 5, 3 kajillion properties,
Yeah.
I would submit to you that in the absence of a compelling state interest, is an unreasonable
Okay, 'cause
restriction upon.
If it's all in
ownership.
commercial anyway, I mean.
That's the biggest
Okay.
misconception.
Should I
Everybody
suggest
thinks
that
it's
you
short-term rental.
At
Just
least add your
commercial.
motion correction of the
Yes.
typos, like the year 2015 on the signing page. I mean, it's far from a perfect document, whether you want to do it now or not.
There was another little typo thing I found, let me see here.
Well, we can vote on this and work on typos later.
Well,
The date-
there's one thing
the
that I
dates-
really don't
The dates
get.
we signed it, right? I mean,
There's one little thing here that really doesn't, it's at the bottom, it's under number 14.
Well, now hold it. Jim is saying that after you adopt it, you adopt it.
You don't change it.
Well, that, if you look at number 14B, the wording goes, the penalties for violations specified in subsection, and then it has 1 in parentheses, but I don't know what number 1 you're talking about there. And that was a question, and then there's about 3 extra words later on in that sentence, but.
What's this?
It's on B of number 14. And it says, it has in subsection, and then in parentheses, the number 1.
Oh,
But
I see what you're saying.
But I don't know what that's referring to as far as the number 1. I wondered if it meant number 11.
I think actually,
Because there's violations in number 11.
that or it could be
This
A.
is not the final edition.
Okay, well, yeah, it's under A, so, but anyway, that is a typo, but then at the end it says, of this section
This
shall
was something
be
that we worked.
as set. And I think it should be just, of this section shall be adopted. But the 3 words as set don't make any sense to me.
Well, we made a motion and you seconded it, and now you want to go through and change it.
Well, it's not changing it, it's definitely typos.
Well,
I
Yeah.
seriously think we need to clean this up before we
I
vote
think
on
you
it.
do too. I don't think we ought to, you can't make a motion and a second to vote and then go through and say we need to change all this stuff. It
So
just
you
doesn't
don't
work.
think you can even change the typos? I thought that Jim was saying we could.
Once you've made a motion, the only way you can change the motion is through a friendly
Okay,
amendment.
so should we?
And once the motion is passed or not passed, it's passed as is. Matt has made it subject to the one specific change that I had recommended at the bottom of paragraph 14C.
Okay, so you just want to leave this other one there, that's whatever.
I would rather clean it up, but, you know, all things being equal, my ego should get out of the way and say, do what you gotta do.
I want to make one more comment. I've implied to people in the past that I have a great deal of local governmental experience. And
Well,
based
you know-
upon that experience, let me make a suggestion to you.
Well, I'm not
That
letting
you follow the
other
lead
people
of your
speak
attorney.
twice.
You amend these motions, delay the action until you can continue this public hearing and take into consideration some of the, grammatical errors and whatnot in this ordinance, get them corrected, subject to a public hearing. It's possible during the course of the discussion, before action is taken, subject to the comments and the action taken in public hearing, to amend the draft document that was published. You can do that. So if you have a special meeting in the next couple of weeks, you can still proceed, but get some of these things corrected.
Well, some people will have to sit down and go over it. Trying to do it in a public meeting like this is just not going to work. I'm sorry. There's
Well,
just-
it would if you all would take the time to go through it thoroughly and make suggestions and do your job. It could be
I'm
done.
going to vote against the damn thing anyway. That's how I feel.
I didn't think the mayor voted, unless it was the time.
I do.
Actually, the statutory criteria for voting is that a town can elect to adopt by ordinance restriction upon the mayor's right to vote. In the absence of such adoption of ordinance, the mayor has the right to vote.
That's great. That does a lot of good for this community.
My knowledge of the statute does bad things for the community. I apologize for that, Pete. But you know what? We're all getting a little bit frustrated. I think we're tired. Let's all just take the tension down just a notch. That's all my only suggestion.
Okay, well, I would stand by the suggestion I made that perhaps you take a little bit more time. There's a way to amend this document and still get it adopted under the previously required publication. And you can do that.
I still think that that's a committee, a group of people, a couple of people ought to sit down and read through it and then come to a meeting and say, here's what we found, here's the typos, and take the time to find the typos and the problems.
And you can do that by continuing this public hearing to another date and allowing that subcommittee to do what you just described. I think that's an excellent
Yeah,
idea.
I think that's a good idea.
And I don't believe the typos are gonna materially affect the ordinance.
Okay. So you want to vote?
I think besides typos, there's stuff that needs to be cleaned up in it, like Ramon pointed out.
There, yeah.
The
well,
problem with our ordinances now are
Language.
they are language so bad that you can't enforce them. Stuff people have added, stuff people shouldn't have added. I mean, you look at the ordinances and you can't enforce them because of stuff they put in them.
Well, I've
It
got,
needs to be black and white. We
Okay.
got too many ordinances that got gray stuff in them.
I've got a motion and I've got a second. You still want to stand by? I guess I can ask.
Yes.
Okay, then I will ask for a show of hands. Who is in favor of approving the short-term ordinance? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
A show of hands, please. 3. Who is opposed? 3. Well, we'll have to sit down and read through it then.
Mr. Mayor, I would have simply hoped that you already have. Just throwing that out there.
What's that?
You mean read it again?
Well, we need to make
Subject
changes.
needs to be cleaned up.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, would the board like to either appoint a subcommittee or have a special meeting in the very near future so that we can clean this up to the extent that it's possible so that something can move forward and have action taken in the near future?
Yes, but we have to do that at a public meeting. But I think it's better if a committee, a couple of people, read through this thing, find the typos, the problems that have been pointed out.
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to be critical, but the problems from one side of the community are that there's any regulation at all. The
Yes.
problems from the other side of the community is that the regulations aren't strenuous enough
That's right.
Or enforced.
or enforced.
Or are they able to?
So you're talking about normative issues. At some level, if there are things that can make this better, great, make it better. But I'm simply saying that doing nothing, the only critical failure in this situation is not to act at all. And if you make a decision that is not liked, well, then so be it, and your point is well taken that the voters can dictate. But I would submit to you that some action, one way or the other, should be taken as reasonably expeditiously as possible.
Could I really have read this all the way through to the letter, and I did notice, well, there is one more little, I just saw the little note that I had. One little place. Could we talk about that other change in this one place? Then could I make a motion to vote again? Because really, I don't think this isn't a really gray thing like some of the ordinances are. This has been handled pretty well. It was taken off of another, I can't claim that I wrote it, he wrote it, Jim did, but based on the Silverton and what I got out of it, I did leave out all that Ramon was talking about because I didn't really see how it applied and how we could enforce those 2 pages that Ramon was talking about.
One thing I'd like to have done is, Ramon suggested, get the wording from an engineer, because really the septic is the most important thing in this whole thing.
It is, really.
And
yeah.
if you don't word it right, and
That's the only thing
you
that
end
I
up with
really
failed
support.
septic because it couldn't be worded right, then where we sit.
I also really support the noise and irritation of other neighbors who are in some cases people that this is their lifelong home. To have a hotel basically operating without a proprietor next door, that's a big thing, even if they are in commercial. That's why
That's the chance you gotta take when you buy in commercial, that the whole place could be commercial and you could be the only resident in it.
Well, that's true, but I still feel that there should be some protection because it's not a hotel either. It doesn't have a proprietor on site. That's the thing that mostly bothers me about the whole idea
But
of
it's
it.
gotta have somebody in charge of the place within I can't remember, 10, 15
I
minutes or
think
whatever.
it's up to 40 minutes.
Well,
40 minutes.
Yeah. But
And
anyway,
Mr. Mayor, what's been the experience for responsive to property owners that you shared earlier?
They call back in a day or two, by the end of the day or something like that.
well, yeah, my preference would be not to have this happen.
And you see,
in this
that
town,
goes
but-
back to the enforcement, and you're throwing a lot on a volunteer person.
I know.
He's gotta say, well, he didn't respond in the 15 minutes, so I'm gonna,
So that's kind of why
Yeah.
I'd like to just throw the whole, if we're not gonna do something like this that keeps it in commercial and has a few restrictions, I would rather that they not be allowed in this town at all, because it's going to end up being a problem. That's been my thought the whole time, but, you can't just not give it all. You just can't go, heck no, it's not gonna happen.
You
here."
can't go through and say, this is commercially zoned, now it's not.
What do
Because
you
what
mean?
you're trying to say is you can't have them. You're saying they can't
Well,
have them.
no,
You
I'm
can-
not saying
in
they can't have
commercial,
them.
you can
That
have
would-
anything you want just
That
about.
would be just kind of, if it was a perfect world, this wouldn't happen to our little town. But it has. So I feel like this is better than what we have right now, which is not anything, really, we have our zoning code saying that it's not legal in residential, but nobody seems to really care about that, so.
but if this is not enforceable, then we still have nothing.
Well, the way it is right now, being kind of mild, it's probably more enforceable than it would be if it got those other 2 pages that Silverton had. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, we do not have law enforcement. We
Well,
don't.
even if we had a policeman, he wouldn't go around and
It's not
enforce
his
zoning.
job to enforce
To
this
enforce
zoning.
ordinance. That's
I
the
know,
court
but
system.
there would be some things that might be able
And,
to be enforced.
and like I said, if you throw all this on the zoning chairman, you're not gonna have a zoning chairman, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
Because nobody's gonna wanna go around and knock on doors and say, you're in violation of this and you're in violation of that. and it's gonna be,
Mr.
it's
Mayor,
gonna be
may I say
hard to
one
do.
thing real quick?
Sure.
It's just, but we've had two speakers tonight, and we've had quite a bit of banter right here that illustrates me the fact that I question whether we even have the right to govern ourselves, because I think this is illustrated that we cannot. And that's some serious stuff there, because this board has either got to belly up to the table and take actions, whether they're popular or not, if they're right or wrong, it's all a matter of opinion. But the thing is that we have illustrated, as long as I've been here, and we had an attorney and another speaker that was very eloquent in pointing out the fact that we do not do a very good job of governing ourselves. And if we can't govern ourselves, then I question, do we even have the right to be a town?
Well, we all had a chance to vote, and we voted. And if I were to change my vote, that doesn't mean that I'm better governing. That just means that I rolled over and played dead. That's what that means. And I'm not going to change my vote.
Listen, you didn't take into account
Please speak
the
up so we can hear.
letters and letters and letters you
Well,
got.
we're not going to. There were letters on both sides, and it came out pretty even. And
And those were all for residential.
yeah, that
I
all
mean, that's the
refers to
problem. There-
residential.
You guys are looking at this as short-term rentals in residential. It has nothing to do with residential. It's commercial zone.
That's what this whole
And all it should
ordinance is
be is
about.
to try to make a residential land use change. And the basic problem is make sure the septic can handle what they're gonna do because it was put in as a residential septic tank. But everybody's trying to drag off into State Street and drag over to River
Well,
Street.
we're
That
sup-
has nothing to do with this ordinance.
We're supposed to have septic inspections anyway.
But when you change a septic from private use, residential use to commercial, you have done a land use change, and it's a different septic system.
But as
If
far
they
as,
can handle it, if the thing can handle it, fine, let it be. If it can't, they need to upgrade it before they do it, because they're now using it for commercial use.
but as far as the short-term rentals that are currently going in residential, we have not zoned those as
No, and it
as
has nothing to
business.
do with this ordinance we're voting on, and everybody keeps dragging that in. It has nothing to do with residential. It's up Main Street and one block
That's
on
right.
that side of State Street, and that
That's
is
right.
it.
That's right. That's exactly
And they
what.
keep dragging in all these other places.
Yeah. Okay, well,
That's a whole different topic that's gotta be issued.
we'll have to go back to work on it.
So, I just feel like it's a shame to not try it again after taking out the typos, to just try this one again.
Okay,
So I would move that we make, okay, on the third page.
what about all the changes that were
Well, no, I can't go for
proposed?
that. I can't go for that because of enforcement. I mean, if you tighten it up and make it be really, really strong, what's the difference? There's not gonna be anybody, like you said, that's gonna wanna be the zoning board chairman, because they're
No.
gonna have to mess with all this stuff.
That's correct.
You know, go do inspections, do they have a smoke alarm, you know, things like that. Nobody wants to do that. This is also why I also agree with John that I'm not so sure that we should be a town anymore. I think that we've grown to the point where this shouldn't be this. And,
Well-
I mean, you know, I know everybody used to say, oh no, we can't quit being a town because we're the longest incorporated town on the western slope. What does that bring us? It doesn't bring us a thing, you know? Anyway, so what I'd like to do, if you'll just bear with me, is on the third page on G, which would be number 5G. And this is really picky, and probably you're gonna roll your eyes, Jim. But on G, on the second line, it says, of the owner, if any, have read the Town of Pitkin short rental ordinance. Oh, we should just add the word term on there.
I apologize, Susie.
You
Can you
weren't
please
listening.
repeat that? I would like to say that I was, but
Yeah, it's okay.
Rand had something to say, and so
Yeah, I know.
I apologize.
You gotta
for that.
listen to Rand.
Give me a moment so I can get the copy that I was making my
Okay.
notes, please. Okay, go ahead, 5G.
5G, and it says on the second line of that paragraph, of the owner, comma, if any, comma, have read the town of Pitkin's short rental ordinance, I would like to add the
Insert
word
the word
term,
right.
so that we know we're talking about this ordinance. And then, back on the bottom of the page that has number 14, the violations and penalties, under B, I would like that 1 to be made into an 11, because I think that's what you meant. And then at the end of that line, I'll wait and make sure you're there before I tell you.
I would actually submit to you that it's supposed to be,
Oh, 14?
Can't be 11.
Yeah, it could be 14. Well, on number 11, it is.
But it says of this subsection, Susie.
I believe it's subsection A, Susie.
Okay, of this, right above it is what it's talking about. So this is B, but it's talking about what's in A right above it. Okay, it doesn't say this subsection, it just says in subsection, but we can, let's say that's A, because that would make sense. But then at the end of the sentence, it goes, of this section shall be as set, adopted, and I think it should just be, of this section shall be adopted by resolution. And that as set were just somehow little extra words that got left in there. Do you think?
One of the S's below.
I think both of the as should go in the set.
It's a resolution as adopted.
Shouldn't this conversations have all taken place before the item was published?
Yes.
I thought we talked about this last night.
Shall be
Well-
adopted by resolution. And then the other thing was just that sentence that Matt already told you that you already took out. Oh, there's one more little thing at the top of that page where you struck out those sentences. At the very top where it says fee schedule period, and then it says violations may be fined on either a per day of violation basis or per violation basis, and I thought it should be violators.
I would submit to you that's merely a question of semantics. The reference in the previous section is to violations, not to violators. But,
I mean, the violator.
you know, I think that you've got a point. I think, that, Ms. Susie, you can make whatever amendments you want, ultimately.
Steve?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion. We get a committee together, clean this up a little bit, and have another meeting and
I agree.
go on with this.
Do I have I've got a motion from Rand. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, got a second from Lisa. All in favor of
Any further discussion?
oh, any further
Can we have a little
discussion?
Just, Susie wasn't making a motion a while
Okay.
ago.
I know, but it's still not clear.
Was she?
I would,
I thought she was.
No,
I
she
did make I was
Well-
making a motion to do this, but I don't
Can't
think,
enforce it.
I might have made a motion, but whatever. Nobody
Well,
seconded it.
whatever doesn't
But nobody
go down
seconded
in
it.
writing very well.
I don't think anybody seconded it.
You wanted to just clean up the typos and vote on it.
Yeah, I did.
But we need to go through this thing.
Don't we need to have a foundation first? I mean, this is like the fruits of the poisonous tree. It's down here, we're still stuck down here, we don't have enforcement, we haven't, the language is unclear, people get confused, they read it, they're like, it could be torn apart.
So what's the motion?
We gotta
waiting
start
to
like
find
way
out.
back.
Do we have a motion here? We have a motion here. How many
Yeah.
motions do we got?
Rand made a motion, is seconded by Lisa.
And I was asking if there was
So
any more
Susie's is
comment on it.
nothing.
Well, I want to know if this is going to be us meeting, like next Monday or something? 'Cause I leave
No, I
on
think we
Tuesday.
need to have a little committee get together.
Yeah, I think so.
Like Ramon. Ramon had real good ideas
Okay,
tonight.
that's
Yeah.
fine, but I just feel like the people that have really been into this should be involved in the committee, but not just bring in new people that
Yeah,
wouldn't quite
definitely.
read this and
Well,
get it, you know?
maybe you need a fresh input. Maybe you need
Yeah.
fresh eyes to look at it.
Well, I also feel like it can take a really long time if it's like people that haven't already been thinking
And
about
I
it.
think it really needs to be stressed. I mean, I can't stress this the most. This is for commercial, and people are dragging residential in it, and it's difference between a cat and a chicken. They're two different animals.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I know we should, as soon as they quit, yes, as soon as they quit bickering. Okay, I've got
You
a,
have a hammer.
I've got a motion, and I've got a second. Who is in favor of getting some new people together to look at this and try to iron out the bugs?
Yeah, I'm not-
Committee, a new committee, a different committee. A committee.
Not a new
Necessarily new
committee.
people.
A committee of
Yeah,
who
just a committee. It can be Susie, you, Ramon, and John, or whatever.
Okay, who is in, okay,
It should be
whoever's
over
in
there.
favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, was that 4 against 2?
Aye.
Okay, that was 4 against 2. Okay.
Four, yes.
How
Yeah.
many people do you want in your committee, Mr. Mayor?
No.
I voted yes that we should do that.
Who's the second one that voted no?
Matt and Susie.
Matt and Susan voted no.
How many people do you want in your committee,
I don't
Mr.
even know,
Mayor?
it's such a disaster.
Between 3 and 5?
Three.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's gotta be more than 3.
Well, then,
Can you?
Should be 5. 5 would be good. And I would hope Ramon would.
yes.
And anybody else who would
Be on the
volunteer
committee.
that would
Definitely.
have good input.
Would you clearly define the role of the committee? Because with my committee, that role was not clearly defined.
Yeah.
It should be.
And if we say clean up this thing, that is not defining it.
No.
Well,
It needs to be worded so it can be enforced.
And
it's
understood.
clear to people what the rules are.
That's right.
What
Because
was-
you say, well, you can't do this, you better put, you can't do A, B, C, D, and E. Or they're gonna go,
what,
oh, it's not
Ramon
defined.
Get rid of
pointed
the
out
may
was
allow.
things that were vague. Is that right? A lot of things were vague. What
I
you
just
pointed
like,
out?
can't understand what you're saying.
Didn't you say that a lot of things are vague?
Vague.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Just like
we
the
need to
septic
clean all the-
inspection, it
we
needs to
need
be
to
worded.
clean it up so it's
Engineer
not
comes in and
vague.
looks at it and tells you exactly what it can do and what it can't do, or if it can even be used for
What
short-term
needs to
rental.
be replaced?
Okay.
Mr.
We,
Mayor,
yes.
is this, I think that you need to define the term of the committee, that either they are to take the content, the belief of what is there, are they permitted to alter it? Are they just cleaning up the typo and the grammar? Are they going to actually be permitted to change the structure of certain parts?
I think that they ought to be permitted to make changes.
But then you're back where you were a year ago with my committee.
May I ask a nonpartisan constructive question?
Okay?
And I would direct it at the attorney if you'd allow me. If this soon-to-be-appointed committee revises this ordinance that was published a month ago, will it be necessary to republish the ordinance prior to action? Or can this public hearing be continued subject to a committee coming back with some corrections to the published ordinance?
I think that it's a very good question, first of all, Pete. And with the amendments that had been proposed earlier, striking some language, fixing some stuff like that, there would be no requirement to republish.
There would not be.
There would not be. The amendments that were discussed in today's meeting, that'd be fine. If there's going to be substantial changes, then I would submit to you the better process.
It's more of a cleanup on the language.
Yeah, but if there's modification to some of the concepts, which I kind of suspect there will be, especially if Ramakowski is suggesting that there's additional language necessary in terms of the engineering issues, I would submit that it's far, far better to publish. But that's why I was saying earlier, do it quickly. I wasn't saying do it, quickly in terms of just get it done, so much as it's got to be something that is moved on quickly, expeditiously. And I think that if there are substantial changes, then you republish after an initial approval.
How does all of this activity relate then to the petition for a referendum?
You can't file a petition if nothing was passed.
Does that mean they'll have to refile at a later date after the
Well,
adoption?
my recollection, and I believe that a referendum must be signed during the 30 days subsequent to the final publishing of a proposed ordinance. And so if there's an additional publishing, then the referendum would need to be circulated during that time period. That's my recollection from my read of it, Pete.
Okay. So we gonna pick the people here?
I think we better do it expeditiously.
Yes.
don't you?
That's what I said.
I'll volunteer to be on the
Okay.
committee.
Okay, you can be on it, and Lucinda Lowe wants to be on it.
Okay, and Ramon will be on it.
He will be on it too. Anybody else?
How did she know she wanted to be on a committee that was yet to be announced?
She does, because I've been getting emails from her every night saying we did this behind everybody's back. And if she says she doesn't want to be on it, I'm going to tell her to burn my email address, because I'm tired of getting emails from her telling me that we do things behind everybody's back. So she's going to be on it, or else. So that's how I
committee
have
members?
What?
Who are the committee members?
Ramon and Lucinda and Cindy. Susie, are you going to be here?
I
Or
don't know when it's gonna be. When is it gonna be?
whenever you guys want to do it.
I mean, I'd be happy to, I leave Tuesday to go to Kelsey's wedding, so I can't do it past Tuesday for another week, but I know it needs
Well,
to be done quick, so.
It's
I mean,
going to be expeditiously, we could do it.
It's early Monday, huh?
Yeah, we could, what about, even this week we could do it if it's not gonna be huge. I mean, I don't think it should be huge. I'd like to see it stay along the same vein that it is, but.
Okay, those are the people that are.
How many you got now?
That was just 4.
4. We should get a 5th.
Yeah.
Tom,
What?
what about you on?
Yeah,
Jesse?
You know what you're asking?
Yeah.
amen.
You have a lot of support here, Tom.
Well, let's just do like talk.
What you, Rick? I'm gonna be gone a lot of the time. Her dad's getting hip surgery next
What
week,
about
so
Jesse? What about you?
she's going out, I'm going a little later.
Tom's gonna do it.
I'll do it.
Okay, there's your 5. Okay, now let's just move on, and we'll let those 5 get together.
Now we're on item 2.
Okay, now the other thing under old business is the municipal court. Is there anything new to talk about?
I'm visiting with the the city of Gunnison on the 23rd, and I'm calling to the town clerk to see if I can get on the agenda.
Okay.
And I'm going to visit with the city manager this week.
Okay, so something is being done and we are moving. Okay, down to new business. Vote to allow Jody Wise to appoint the election judges. And these next 2 items are covered under one resolution if we do vote for them. And to vote on pay for election judges. And The reason for voting Jody Wise to appoint the election judges is if the board votes on some judges and then they can't make it, say, to the training, then the board would have to meet to vote on new people. I personally think it's better if Jody just appoints the election judges, but that'll be up to the board. Jesse?
I don't know that it's fair to put that kind of a burden on Jody that's overpaid now. I know, I'm exaggerating. She
No,
is
it will
way
make it
overpaid.
much
This was
easier.
kind of her idea.
It will make it
Well,
much,
This was
much
her idea.
easier.
Are you gonna make everybody happy in who you appoint
No.
judges when the trustees, I thought were going to do it last month?
No, we're gonna talk about it. It'd be
We're
much
not gonna make
easier.
everybody happy, but these people are
It'll
gonna
be
be,
easier for me.
these
It's
people
also
will be
pretty
fair
standard
and impartial.
It's just much easier if one person's in charge. You don't have to go through a bunch of meetings to do this.
Right.
Jody, somebody mentioned, I think like last month at a meeting, or when we talked about this before, when it just came up last month, that anybody who's running, that no family member should be a judge.
Well, that
It's-
makes sense.
That makes
Well,
sense.
I'm just
Yeah.
asking her.
just
Nobody
a
really can
recommendation.
go to the
Yes.
deal
Just a
where they
recommendation.
open them and.
I trust Jody to pick good people.
That's
So-
not what we're talking about
That's
right
not
now.
what
Yes.
we're talking
Yeah.
about. All these people are good people.
Well, no, we don't need to
Well,
talk
I don't
about
mean
that.
good like, I mean,
It just
you
needs to be
said,
decided who does it.
yes,
Right now, it's all we're
that's
doing.
what we're talking about.
Right.
We're not
And,
talking about the people right now.
and I guess there's two ways to do it. We can vote to have Jody pick them, or we can sit here and argue about it.
No, Jody picked them.
Okay?
Yeah.
Well, I have a resolution that I'll read. and
Okay,
details.
read the resolution and let's,
I don't have a number, because I think you have a numbered resolution.
No, mine's got a blank.
Oh, well, you're probably 3, this is probably 4, because I think we've had 2. So this is resolution of the Town of Pitkin Board of Trustees to delegate the authority to the town clerk to appoint election judges for the April 5th regular election. Whereas the Town of Pitkin will be conducting its regular election on April 5th, 2016, and such election requires the appointment of election judges, and whereas the Colorado Municipal Election Code specifies how such appointments are to be made in CRS 3110-401, and whereas CRS 3110-401 allows the board may by resolution delegate to the clerk the authority and responsibility to appoint election judges, and whereas the timing and process of making appointments may be cumbersome in the content of timing of regular Board of Trustee meetings, and whereas the Board of Trustees desires to delegate this authority to the clerk in the interest of efficiency. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Town of Pitkin, Colorado, that the town clerk is hereby delegated authority to appoint election judges for the April 5th, 2016 regular election. Number 2, the minimum number of judges will be sufficient to meet statutory requirements and also to fulfill the needs of this specific election. Number 3, the town clerk is also authorized to determine appropriate compensation for the election judges based on statutory requirements and best practices among municipalities.
okay?
Question, what's the minimum amount?
$5.
No, I mean the minimum amount of people.
Oh, 3.
Judges. 3?
You have to have 3. If 3 don't show up, the election is
How many hours will they be working that day?
all day.
Well, what's
So
all
12,
what
14
7 to
hours.
7.
Will you
14
have a
hours?
sub? Will you have a substitute?
Yes.
Some substitutes, okay.
Okay.
Good.
I'll make
Okay.
a motion, we let Jody
Yeah,
hire judges.
Okay, do I have a second?
I do.
Okay, I got a second from Lisa. Is there any other questions, comments, talk? Okay. All in favor of allowing Jody to pick the election judges, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, is there
Yes.
going to be a motion from one of the Board of Trustees to approve the resolution as offered by Jody Wise, the town clerk?
I guess we probably should.
That'd be handy.
Okay. Yeah, we ought to just reword that, I
Yeah,
guess.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution that Jody read to us.
Okay,
So that's the motion, or is that the second motion?
It's a second motion.
yes. Okay, and then I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, I got a second from Cindy, okay. Does this resolution have a name?
Does it have a name? Well, it's probably
Okay,
number 3 or 4.
okay, all in favor
Resolution
of
3 or 4.
accepting the resolution that's on the table, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we took care of that.
So was that the second one out of 3? So we'd have one more, like, something like doing the budget resolution?
Yes, that's another one.
That would be
That's
number
the-
3, and I'll make this one
Yes.
number 4.
Now we have to vote
Okay.
on a budget resolution to appropriate money for the election
I would, so
consultant.
You
I'd
can
like
name that
to
one
make
3.
a motion to, as for a budget resolution to appropriate money for election consultant and other election expenses.
Okay, do we have a resolution for that? Okay,
Do we have to figure out how much we're gonna pay him now, or?
No, this is for the consultant.
we have
This
to read
is
all of
to-
these?
It's the same one. I'm handing you copies to pass down. Mr. Mayor, may I read the proposed resolution?
Yes.
Resolution to amend the Town of Pitkin 2016 budget to reflect supplemental appropriations. Resolution number 3, Series 2016. Whereas Section 29.1.109 Colorado Revised Statutes authorizes the Board of Trustees of the Town of Pitkin to approve supplemental appropriations after adoption of the annual budget, and whereas the Board of Trustees of the Town of Pitkin has determined that expenditures relating to hiring an election consultant were necessary and appropriate and in the best interest of the community, and whereas such expenditures were unforeseen in 2015, and whereas the Board of Trustees of the Town of Pitkin desire to amend the Town of Pitkin 2016 budget to reflect a supplemental appropriation to fund the necessary legal expenses, and now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Pitkin 2016 budget shall be amended to reflect a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $6,000 to fund the hiring of Judy Egbert of GovPro Consulting. I don't know how that came out. GovPro Consulting LLC to serve as the deputy clerk for the 2016 Town of Pitkin election. This supplemental appropriation was originally approved by the Board of Trustees of the Town of Pitkin at its special meeting on January 20, 2016. Be it further resolved that the source of funds for the supplemental appropriation shall be the reserves, and be it further resolved that Jody Wise, Treasurer for the Town of Pitkin, Colorado, shall pay such funds upon receipt of an invoice and signed contract from GovPro Consulting LLC. And be it further resolved that pursuant to Section 29.1.106 sub 3 sub B Colorado Revised Statutes, proper notice of this resolution and the public meeting at which the resolution was approved was provided by publication in the Gunnison Country Times on February 4, 2016. Introduced, read, and adopted this 9th day of February 2016.
Okay. So, I will call for a motion and a second for resolution number 3, series 2016.
I will move that we pass resolution number 4, is it?
3.
Number 3, to amend the Town of Pitkin 2016 budget to reflect supplemental appropriations for the cost of the election.
I have a motion from Susie. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second. Any other comments? Okay. All in favor of adopting resolution 3, series 2016, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Down to other thing in new business is, let's see, down to, okay, the septic for Jim and Ellen Schreivogel.
Okay, this is the one that came to us, what, 2 months ago or so?
Yes.
And they wanted to put the leach field in River Street. guess it'd be between, what is it up there? Between 8th and 9th?
Yeah,
And they wanted to put it clear up in front of another parcel.
okay.
And Steve and I went over and looked at it. We decided, no, it wasn't good to put it in front of someone else's property. So we have a new proposal, and they were gonna leave the septic out in the street too. Now the new proposal, the septic is right up next to the house. The leach field's out in front of the house, and they have actually drawn in provisions where if they drilled a well in the corner of the property up creek from it,
Yeah.
it would be 100 feet from it.
So they
And that would
wouldn't-
be down in the corner up creek of the property. So it'd be right up against 9th Street, but it'd still do it. The buildable part of the property is on
Okay,
that side of the river
Yeah, the
anyway.
other side of the
But If
river.
they had to drill it, they could. So it's making all it, they're gonna drill a new well for their own house.
Yeah.
It's gonna make all setbacks for wells and a proposed well for the property next door. It's in the street still, but, you know, that's that street that goes down by Fred Spaces and
Yes, I
all, where
know which
nobody,
street.
you know, you got, what is it, River Lane above it now.
yeah.
So the street will probably never be put in, but all we have to do is put in the provisions, they can do it if we agree.
Right.
And if it ever has to be tore out because the street has to go in, then
Okay,
so be it. But that might be 100 years from now and that thing won't be working anyway.
okay, does anybody,
Here's the
I'm
map,
from
Tina.
Schreivogel, and this is my
Oh.
husband, Jim.
okay,
We've repeatedly been told that had we been here over the last 6 years at some point, that it would have been a better thing. So we journeyed all the
Well,
way
thank
out here
you.
to do that.
Thank you.
I have another copy that I do need returned to me.
I would just hold on to that, Ms. Schreivogel.
yeah.
They can't look at it?
Oh, I'm just saying,
Pass it.
So we could
Yeah.
just go over and look at that one so you don't have to. You can
it's
keep
fine.
that one.
Either way.
Thank you.
In 2010, we originally requested your consideration, and we were turned down because we were told that you could not abandon the street. We never requested that the street be abandoned. What we know now is that this proposal that's in front of you is the only way that we can ever have a working septic on our property. It is the only viable plan in order for us to have a working septic.
Well, this is better than your last plan because this does not affect anybody else's property.
So I would just like to suggest to you in the future that you be clear with people
Yes.
who are trying to work through this process with you, because I have documentation of being told in emails at least 5 different things as to why our plan couldn't be approved. And all we want is to be able to come up here and retire, enjoy property that we've owned for over 30 years, and have always tried to comply. We go back to 1998, and there was a whole different board and a whole different set of circumstances with having Gunnison's health inspector up here taking care of septics. I think Susie was a part of that at some point. We complied with that by having put in a closed system, which we did not want to do, but we complied. All I'm saying is what's in front of you is the only way we can have a working system. And Williams went ahead and they found every possibility around where wells were existing, where leach fields can be put, where new wells can be put on all the property around. All I'm saying to you is if you had told us this up front the very first time, it would have been so much better. We've spent a lot of money having plans engineered to be turned down. It's been very frustrating. And I watched your videotaped meetings, and the last time this was discussed, it was flippantly called the nightmare that you were going to talk about. We've been here for 30 years, and just like a little consideration and a little empathy about what our problem is. We want to be compliant. And if you look at the design report, Number 5 says variance requested due to the horizontal separation distances as required by regulation so-and-so with respect to the horizontal distance separation of well and water course or stream from the absorption field. Due to this horizontal distance requirement of 100 feet from any potable well and
50 feet from any water course or stream. The only place to locate the absorption field is in River Street, right over the top of the existing closed system and septic tank that we've had since 1998. A mapping investigation was performed to evaluate the impact of neighboring lots 23 through 26, currently owned by Selden Lawson. This placement in the Schreivogel leach field allows for 2 options for future placement of the Wasson's well and leach field, included on the drawings. The variance that is being asked for is that the absorption field be placed in River Street near the existing septic tank. Again, this placement will not affect the future build of the Wasson property. It still allows the same access that's already there for people to go onto their using River Street to go onto their property on that site. It doesn't change anything, other than there are trees and boulders and they don't really have access, but it's there.
I just want to say, I know you mentioned my name, that I was involved. I am the septic clerk. I mean,
I know. I'm just saying,
just
if
want
you
you to know
recall, that was part of what went on.
Yeah,
That's all I'm
because
saying.
this stuff is like total septic engineer, which I am not. I mean, the only reason I do the septic records is that I can type on a computer and I have the software for keeping track of people.
We don't take issue with that at all.
Okay.
Just trying to
Yeah,
provide
but
some history.
I'm glad they found a solution, sort of. I mean, at least, and it sounds like a piece of a street that is not going to be used, hopefully, for a long time.
And well, okay, yeah, do any of the trustees want to come down here and look at it?
Existing home So now they got it here, they're drilling right here. Press spaces over here, so there's these are those 2 lots. People in there, so they're not moving to linear.
Oh, the people.
Press space. Right here. This person to put their well there, they probably drill there and put their septic. Space is here.
But this driveway goes
To their house. But they could drive across here, go down there, and want to service this property, but there's nothing over there.
How these people access the property?
Probably that's what they want to do, to come down by Rex's house and cut through 9th.
My decision's there.
But this doesn't cut off the access to anybody's property?
No.
Okay, well.
No, they could drive over.
It makes the setbacks, it doesn't mess with anybody else's property.
Yeah, the road, if this road ever had to be put in for some reason, 100 years from now, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, drive down the park in front of their house and you know what their space is, you know what I'm doing. When you're doing it. Here, I guess. Over the edge there, and that road.
Okay.
Rises up here.
Okay, we've had a chance to look the plans over. I guess I would need a motion and I would need a second on these plans for Schreivogel's septic.
I'll make a motion to accept the proposed.
Okay, I have a motion to accept,
And I'll second it.
and I got a second from Susie. Any other comments? Okay, all in favor of accepting these plans as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You got your septic. And we will adjourn the meeting at 9:13.